Good morning and welcome back to the channel, and a special welcome to all you guys who've been following my journey with this bicycle in the background here. For those of you who haven't, this is a bike that we lovingly refer to as Dangerous Brian. He does all our sort of dangerous work up in the mountains, the trails that my touring bike won't handle. So full suspension mountain bike from AliExpress. It comes standard with 11 speeds. It's got sort of a generic shifters and derailleurs. It's got a cheap shock absorber, which I'm sort of putting up with at the minute. And it had oil forks, which have already been changed. So a quick modifications that I've done that I can remember since I've done it. Obviously, we've changed the forks for gas forks. These have been quite a good success. I'm quite happy with them. I've done a modification which sort of braces the bearings up for the head bearings. Still got problems with that. I'm going to address that in this video as well. We obviously put some various bits of bling on this. But I think the bigger sort of elephant in the room with this, it's had a 750 watt Bafang mid-drive conversion, which basically makes this quite literally a bike that will go anywhere. So some of you may recall I did these modifications, and I said I was going to actually ride the bike and get used to the bike because it was all new to me as well. Never had a full suspension mountain bike, and get a feel for it before I decided to do any more sort of modifications to it. Now I've just come back after about a month up in northern Spain in Asturias, you know, this and bouncing off boulders down steep inclines, and I'll sort of know what I want to change and what the problems are with the bike, and that's what we're going to address today. So if you're a return viewer to my channel, you'll be fully aware of my hate of the modern smooth sort of fork stem system. I hate it. I don't think it should ever have made it off the drawing board, let alone into production. It's woefully inadequate for the job it's meant to do. I much prefer the older system with a threaded bar where you could sort of you could tighten the nut down exactly where you want it, get exactly the right tension on the bearings, and then bring the other nut down to lock it off. Far superior, but for some reason they've gone this way. Probably it's trendy, looks a bit better, I don't know. But yeah, this is pretty disastrous, and I think a lot of us are constantly having to retension bearings at the front here. Now these are bad again, despite having this special rod that goes all the way up for the centre here and tightens down. These are still not good. So what I'm going to do is I'm taking the whole lot out in this video. I'm not going to dwell on it too much. It's quite a boring subject, but it is going to be part of it. I'm going to quickly get these bearings out, including all the cups and everything, and upgrade the bearings to what's meant to be better quality sealed bearings. So that's one job. And this time, instead of trying to find the play in the bearings by you sort of putting the front brake on and rocking it back and forwards, because there's a certain amount of play in between here that gives you sort of a false, idea of how much play is in the top here. What I'm going to do, because these are, double yokes, I'm just going to slide the forks out, replace the bearings, and then rock these two parts to see what plays in it. And that should give me a more accurate idea of how much play is in the head bearings. So that's number one. Number two is, well, obviously when I've got a flat tyre here, I've picked up a form, which is amazing I didn't get more because we was going through brambles and all sorts when I was riding. We've got a puncture, so we're going to fix that. I'm just going to swap the inner tube out. I'm not ready to go to tubeless tyres. Just don't like the idea of it, So I'm going to stick with tubeless tyres. I like the idea. You can quickly remove the wheel, change the inner tube, get the thorn out or whatever, and then get it back on the bike and get on your way. I don't like the idea of the tubeless tyre, where what you're going to do if you have a puncture, and then if you start putting your sort of slime inside that's going to seal it, I've known from previous experience with car tyres doing that, it's a hell of a mess when you do eventually have to change the tyre completely and clean that wheel up. So yeah, I don't like the idea of tubeless tyres, and I'm quite happy to stick with the tubes. So the tube, I'm putting a new tube back in after I found the thorn that's probably in here somewhere. I should be putting actual tube liners in, tyre liners, which sort of go between the tube and the tyre, which are quite good. I've had success with them in the past. But again, another pretty boring upgrade, which I won't dwell on too much. It'll be a quick bit of footage and that'll be it. So other things you've got to do, because it's had quite a batter in this bike over the past month. I've had a lump of wood go straight for the spokes down the trail when I was going like sort of down a rocky 40% gradient, and yeah, locked up the wheel. I went straight over the handlebar. So yeah, the wheel's got a little bit of a wobble in it, but I'm surprised it didn't completely, wipe it out completely. But no, it's fine. It works okay. But it's a slight wobble. So I'm going to take the wheel off, which I've just done with the previous bike, which I made a video about, and get that on the wheel alignment machine. I'll check spoke tension. Check the alignment of the rim once I've got the tyre off and everything. I can do sort of alignment from the edge here, and also so it's not sort of egg shaped, and also alignment this way as well. So I'll get that done again. But another boring thing, we'll just touch on it quickly, a little bit of footage, and that'll be that. And I'll be doing the same with the back wheel, although I'm not sure. I think I will put the liner in as well, which will then mean I could have checked the alignment on these wheels. Now, by rights, I should have checked that as soon as the bike came from new, but I didn't bother. I just wanted to get it all together and try it out. And then I don't think they're too bad. So interesting stuff, or what I consider to be interesting stuff, is going to be the brakes. We're going to upgrade, take these discs off. I've got some discs from RockShox. They're 203mm discs. Obviously, we're fitting them. We need the adapters to go on here, which I've got some red sort of CNC aluminium brackets to go up here to move this away, and the same on the front. Now, I know really at some point, because I'm going down the rocks, I'm going to have 4-pot Shimano brakes. But it's quite an expensive upgrade at the minute, and I'm not ready to do that quite yet. Whereas the disc is quite cheap. It comes in at about €25, all complete with the discs and the brackets. So it's quite a cheap upgrade to do, which should make quite a big difference, even though I'm going to stick for the time being with these single pot ones. Obviously, later it needs to be better, because when you're on rocks, you really need to have one finger on the brake, one finger braking, because you want to have a good old grip of the handlebars. And that's hard to do if you haven't got, strong brakes, just working with one finger. But we'll do that modification, see we get on. And I suppose the final modification is going to be an upgrade on the derailleur. We've got just put Shimano Deore on my girlfriend's bike as an upgrade, and we're going to do the same here. 11 speed derailleur on, 11 speed shifter with a window on it. And that, for the time being, is going to be the great upgrades. So I think we're best, enough chit chat. Let's get on with that. Like I say, I'll fly through the boring stuff and then sort of slow things down for the more interesting bits. Okay, so it turns out actually the head bearings have not got any real movement in them. So it just goes to show you've got to be careful that you don't get sort of a false reading or a false idea of the play in the bearings because of the really long forks on the downhill there. Nevertheless, they feel a bit lumpy and clonky. So probably where I've over tightened them. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to replace them for the better quality ones anyway. Okay, so these are the lower and upper cups from the new bearing set. I only took measurements from the outside. There isn't a huge amount of choice, so I felt fairly confident in my guesstimate. So now's a moment of truth. I think they're going to be okay. I think they're going to go in, but there's no way of really telling until we get the old cups out. Well, I hope we don't need that. That just went halfway down the bank. Okay, so that's the top all the way home. Use a nylon hammer so absolutely no damage, that's in nice and clean. Just make sure, okay, bottom should be a bit more difficult. Okay, that one sounds like it's home. So not too much drama there. Okay, I've just been and taken this sort of tapered washer off the bottom here. in the vice inside. It's a different system, not the same on these sealed bearings as the old type bearings. This is a new one that goes on. That's got a split in it, so you haven't got to tap it on or anything. That just pushes down. Doesn't seem to be a dust cover down in this bottom, and I would like to dust cover, but there isn't one, and there don't really seem to be room for one. So it's like that slots straight into here and through. Then we've got this one in for the top, taper down. And then we've got a nice dust cover with a sort of rubber seal in here as well. It should hold it into place, not stop it from falling out the bottom. Got to say, that feels pretty good. Okay, so I'm going to put the top yoke on there, and I'm just going to temporarily just quickly pinch this on to stop it all from dropping out straight out the bottom if it decides to. Okay, so that's all loosely back into place. I've sort of tweaked up the bearings to where I want them, but I should probably tweak them a bit more again yet. But they seem pretty good, you know, a great improvement on the last ones. So I think we need to move on to the front wheel now. I shall take the tyre off, find a puncture, replace the inner tube, put some tyre liners in, and swap that disc. Okay, so that's the thorn out of the tyre, turned out to be a Hawthorn. Found that, dug that out. So now we're going to check tension of the spokes, see how true the wheel is, and then we're going to swap the disc and get the tyre back on with the tyre liners. Well, I've just spared you probably some of the most boring content on the planet. It took me an hour and a half to get that wheel sort of anything close to straight. It's within a millimetre now, so that's pretty good. But that has got to be probably one of the most tedious jobs you can do on a bicycle, is like realigning up these wheels with the spokes, you know. Anyway, we're going to get this disc off and put the new disc. Okay, so here's our new disc. You can see there's quite a bit of difference there. Okay, so we're going to get that on. Hopefully that's going to line up. Yeah, that lines up perfect. New thread lock on all the bolts in. I'll bring you back in. Okay, so that's the disc on. Bolts torqued up, the torque settings are written actually on the disc here. Quick clean up of the wheel once we've got it off. I'm now going to put the inner tube back in, tyre back on, and the tyre liners in. I won't film that, it's pretty boring, tedious stuff, and then we'll get the wheel back on the bike. Okay, so that's the tyre back on. Just quickly just spin it in the actual tyre alignment tool. And I'm well happy with that. It's wobbling around on the table, but that's pretty damn true, that. Okay, let's get back on the bike. Okay guys, and I think that's going to be it for today. As you can see, you know, we've lost the shade. I prefer to work in natural light outside, so I normally work in the shade until the sun gets round, and that's my cue to go inside and go do some editing. So that's it for today. I'll bring you back in. See you later. Good morning and welcome back. It's been a few weeks since I've had a chance to actually work on Brian here. With us having a month away up in northern Spain, we're on catch up down at the farm. We've got olive season looming, so we've really been getting prepared for that. But today is the day, Friday. I've managed to free up a day so we can crack on a bit more with this. So if you recall, or more to the point if I recall, we just finished the front end here. We've got the wheel back on, the forks back in. Everything's loosely together in case I have to do some tweaking and adjusting. But for now, it's all back together for us to start working on the brakes. Now, obviously, we've got a bigger disc here, so we're going to need to space it out with a disc spacer. This is it here. Never fitted them before. It's got a little arrow on it. I don't know if the camera's picking it up there. I don't know if that means pointing up or pointing down, but I've offered it up and it appears that it's meant to be pointing down when I sort of offer it up to the caliper. Okay, so here's our bracket here with the arrow pointing down. I've noticed that when I've got the sort of off up where the caliper's meant to be, this sort of part of the caliper here, the bend here, goes into this sort of view here. So I assume that means it's pointing down, and that's now got to go onto here like this. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to get this bracket bolted onto the actual fork and then see how we go on with fitting this caliper. So the kit comes with this bracket here, and it also comes with these Allen bolts with a bit of a thread lock on it. I'm going to put a bit more on it just in case, it's not the sort of thing we want coming loose when we're going down, a steep gradient. A little bit on there and get these bolted on. These bolts are quite long on here, so yeah, I don't think there's much chance of these working loose, so you're going to go right up into here. Okay, that's on, that looks quite good. Spin it, make sure we're clearing. Yeah, everything's all clearing okay. Thread this back. Okay, that looks like it's going to fit properly. Okay, so new disc, new pads. Okay, so I've just had a quick look at the pads there. One of them looks like it's worn down more than the other, so I'm just going to check before I move on that actually it looks like a 2-pot caliper, that they are both actually coming out when we put the brakes on. Yeah, they are, but one seems to be pushing more than the other. Okay, so I've just tested both those pistons. I've jammed one up, the one that was coming out freely, and pushed the other one. They seem to both be coming out, so I think that'll be fine. We've got new brake pads. They're buck locks, or buck loss, just the same as the discs. So we'll slide them in, sit, line them up, and then we've got a new pin for that as well, I think. And now we've got our original brake caliper bolts here. Fresh thread lock on again. Okay, and I'll just tighten them home, back them off very slightly. Now I'm going to pump the brake. Cool, seems well solid. Okay, and slight adjustments, repeatedly tighten them up, loosen them off, tighten up until there's no catching. Hope you can hear that, there's no catching there at all now. That seems to have got that good. Okay, only one problem I've got now is this is a little bit tighter. It's a problem I had before. I put the handlebars as high as I could and still not have tension, but obviously with this, pushing this further away now from the fork, I was hoping it'd be a bit more around this way and it might give me a bit more slack, but in actual fact it's giving me more tension. Something will have to be addressed again in the future, I think. Okay, so that's more or less it for the front bar and a bit of tweaking and fine tuning. I'm not 100% happy with the head bearings yet, but I want to get everything together and it down on the ground before I start messing with that. So now we're on to the rear. It's exactly the same more or less as the front. We've got to have the wheel off. We've got to put the new disc on. We've got to check the alignment on the rear wheel as well. I'm also going to put the tyre liners in to try and protect the inner tube, give me a bit more protection there. So basically exactly the same as the front wheel. So what I'll do is I'll get that off. I'm not going to bore you with all that again, and I'll bring you back in for when we put in the new brackets and refit the rear calipers, because the rear bracket's quite a bit different to the front one. Good morning and welcome back. It's been nearly a week since I last worked on this bike. When I last worked on it, it came to a bit of an abrupt end there. If you recall, I was actually had the rear wheel off. I was checking the alignment, the tension on the spokes. replacing the rear inner tube and also putting a tyre liner in there as well. Now I checked it on everything, the spoke tension was okay. The wheel was slightly out of alignment by about a millimetre, about half a millimetre, so I thought, well, that's not going to show. But when I put the tyre wheel back on everything, I gave it a spin, you could see quite a defined wobble on it. Now, I did try to deflate the tyre, because in the past I spent a lot of time doing the wheel alignment, only to find that it was actually the tyre wasn't sat properly beaded on the actual rim. So I lubed the rim up, and then I actually put the tyre back on, inflated it to try and make sure it wasn't that. And then the new inner tube I fitted, that actually blew a leak. And yeah, I had a puncture basically. Now I'm going to say at this point here, these are the Decathlon ones. I've used them before, and it actually went on the seam near the valve here. Now it can't be passed off as just one bad run, because I've had it happen to me before, and it can't be passed off as a bad batch because that was about 2 years ago. So obviously a fault with these, so I'm afraid I'm going to have to say, even though I'm a fan of Decathlon, these with the big cheap ones with the big brass valves and the box there, I couldn't recommend them. They are cheap, but then if they don't work, they're not cheap, are they? They're expensive. So yeah, can't recommend them. So anyway, after I was getting quite frustrated with it, you know, I was getting a bit tired as well. It was getting a bit later on in the day. I decided to take a step back, you know, and put the bike away before it, you know, ended up going down the mountainside without me, you know, really starting to get on my nerves. So I've ordered some TPU, I think they're called, inner tubes, some thinner inner tubes. I'm waiting for them, so I can't really get on with that. But I can get on with some other things. So what we'll do, once those inner tubes come, I won't bother realigning this rear wheel. I think we'll get on with doing the rear brake, the adapter, which looks like it's going to actually be a replacement part rather than adding another part on. And we'll get on with the changing the gear set as well. Okay, so we're around the other side of the bike here. If you recall, actually on the front here, we actually had to add an adapter here to, you know, to basically space the caliper out so that we could get it on this larger disc. This one already has some sort of adapter on it, and it's looking like it's just a case of switching it out. Now on this occasion, this one has an arrow, and it does actually say rear as well, pointing. So whereas the other one only seemed to have an arrow on it, but it doesn't say up or down, so it wasn't really much use to us. So it looks like all we're going to do is just swap this part out for the red one, and then get the caliper back on. So hopefully it should be quite straightforward. Although like with most things, you know, mechanical, changing one thing rarely changes one thing, and it did leave the hydraulic hose, the hydraulic pipe, short on the front. I've also reordered some more of that so I could put a longer one on. I think this time on the rear we're not going to have that problem. Okay, that doesn't seem to be on as securely as I might have liked. Anyway. A quick clean one, we've got the opportunity. Okay, so we've got our bracket, we've got a new bolt which actually does have thread lock on, but we're going to put a bit of extra on anyway, it won't hurt. So the last thing we want is brakes starting to come loose as we're flying down the mountainside. Yeah, so a bit of fresh thread lock on there. Bracket behind. Okay, it's already fighting us. Looks like the bolts that are supplied with it, with the thread lock on, just make them a bit too fat to go through here, and the thread lock's hard on them. So I think what I'm going to do is have to use the original ones here. Thread lock this time because he's had none on them whatsoever. I would have liked to use the new ones because they are a little bit longer. We'll see how far the threads go through in a minute. Yeah, they're well into there. There's plenty of thread going in. We'll be fine with that. Okay, that's nice and tight. I'm going to go around, spin the wheel, make sure we're clearing. Yeah, we've got plenty of clearance there, a lot more clearance even than on the front. Okay, let's try refitting the caliper. So, new discs, so we're going to put new pads on. And of course, new split pin. Okay, so we're going to put this caliper back on. I'm not going to put thread lock on this again because more likely than not I'll have to readjust these when I take the rear wheel back out and put it back in again. So for now, no thread lock, we'll leave that. Hopefully this is going to slide on. Make sure we've got it between the pads. Yep, so nicely. Fighting me a little because this brake pipe's just a little bit long now. So it's pushing against me. Okay, first one in. Okay, so tightened up. Just going to do the brake. We're on UK brake system on this bike, so rear brake's on the left, which I prefer because it's similar to motorcycle setup. Okay, right, let's loose them off. That's it, first time. Brilliant. Okay, so that's on, that's pretty easy. It has left this pipe slightly long, but I'm not too upset about that, because if you see now, this actually now bends up over this linkage, whereas before it was sort of down here and it was sort of rubbing on the linkage, hence why I put these little protectors on here. So yeah, I'm not too upset that that's gone up right over there like that. I think that's actually a better job. Okay then, so that's fairly simple. Good start to the morning. Let's hope it carries on this theme. And let's move around to the other side and start on the gear set. So we're upgrading the derailleur to Shimano Deore. I've got to say, I was quite shocked in the size difference. This is a beast of an actual derailleur. Hell of a stiff spring on this. I recently, only about a couple of weeks ago, upgraded my girlfriend's bicycle to a 10-speed and used Deore on it on a decathlon bike. And this is almost twice the size. I'll put that video in on the end of this one. You can see it's a huge difference in size between the 11-speed and the 10-speed, same make and model. Why that is, I don't know, but anyway, I suspect this is the same principle as the last thing, putting it back on. So yeah, that's gone on with that. Okay, so we're going to start with splitting this chain. This actual chain doesn't have a split link on it, and I always carry a chain splitter with me when we go out on our rides. Our rides are mainly right out into the Spanish wilderness, sort of 10-15 kilometres out into it sometimes, so it's a long way to hoof it back out if you've got a broken chain. So I carry this, then I could just take a few links out and sort of join it back together, and that's what I did with this chain originally, because I didn't actually have a split link for it. I just made it the length I wanted it, and then just used the actual chain splitter reverse and pushed it all back together again. Okay, cable end off. There we go, cable out. Now there's a good chance I may have to make this one a bit longer, but we'll worry about that later. For now we'll take this out. Never very keen on this. This has got sort of a plastic runner there for this cable, and I just have visions of that wearing over time. But anyway, let's get this out here. We're going with 3. Okay, that wasn't even on tight, that wasn't. Deary, deary me. I thought I checked all this when I first got the bike. Yeah. Yeah, absence of thread lock there. Okay, so now we're getting ready to put the derailleur on. I'm trying not to make a mistake I made when I did this last time and had to alter it. There's a little notch here on the derailleur hanger, and this bit here needs to go on top of that, sort of to the left if you're facing it. So this will go on in effect like this, right behind it, as opposed to doing the other side, which I did last time, which was a mistake. This is slightly different, so I hope it's going to be right. So let's get some thread lock on that and get that fitted. Okay, that seems to be right. Okay, well, we've got that on, and I've done the actual screw that actually pushes sort of the derailleur back, so this top wheel will clear once it's on the largest cog here. That's fully in, that screw, so I hope we're going to be all right with that. That didn't go on as, you know, quite as a good fit as I'd hoped. Hopefully we're not going to have to change this derailleur hanger here. We'll just have to see how we go on. So I think before we go any further, I think we need to get the chain on and make sure that that's going to be okay. So I've quickly put the chain back on, joined it back up. I was very concerned that this screw that actually here is tightened all the way in, which sort of pushes the derailleur back this way so that this cog doesn't clash with the largest cog there. And if I take you around to the other side, you can see actually we've got quite good clearance over the cogs. I could probably even loosen that off a bit. But it was a concern there for a minute. I was thinking we may have to order another sort of derailleur hanger that was more compatible, but no, it looks like we've dodged a bullet there, and it is going to be okay. So I think what I'm going to do now is we'll get it down off the rack, and we're going to actually change the gear selector up the top there for the actual Shimano Deore one, and then run through the gears and see what we've got. Okay, so in a minute I'm going to take this all apart. I'm going to change it around slightly, I think. These have all got Allen bolts on here to take them off. Obviously this gear selector needs to go back on, but I'm thinking of swapping it over with the brake lever, so that we've sort of got the brake lever here, then the selector, than the handlebar grip. The reason for that is then I can slide this further away and I can get this on so that we've only got sort of 2 fingers or even 1 finger on the brake lever, so that I've got a better grip of the handlebar grip whilst going downhill or over really bumpy terrain, and I can use 1 finger then for the brakes. Hopefully they're up to that then, and have a good grip of the handlebars. So we'll take those apart and see how that works out. Okay, I'm going to undo both these Allen bolts here because there's no way I'm going to slide this off the end of the handlebar because the hydraulic line's so short. So we'll take both these off. Getting that out of the way. And now the gear selector. Carefully take that off the end. Okay, so that's all off. I think what I'm going to do is just unclip that from there. So I'm just going to loosely put the brake lever back on. Okay, and I've loosened off the cable at the derailleur end now, so this should just pull through just the inner cable out of the outer cable. And there we go, we're out. Now hopefully that's not going to be too much of a problem because the actual cable runs through the frame and I really don't want to start getting into that. Now I'm going to separate this cable here. This is an adjuster. I've talked about these quite a lot in the past. I've had people commented that they're actually for the brake cables, but I find these invaluable on the derailleur cable when you're doing bike rides right out into the middle of nowhere. You know, if you've got something on your handlebars that's interfering with your cable a bit and you may need to quickly readjust it, or even if you clonk your derailleur out, or probably the case here will be that this new cable may stretch a little. If you're out in the middle of nowhere, it's handy to be able to quickly twist this and adjust the derailleur and stop all that crunching from the rear end. Okay, so we've got our new selector here. As last time when I fitted one of these, I suspect this is going to be really long, this cable, but hey, better that than too short. It's got a nice little soldered end sort of on the end there to stop it from separating, so you've not got that sort of twist in it to get this back through, which is handy as well. So let's get that apart. Stretched out. Okay, and let's start rethreading this in again. So through that first little bit of cable, which goes to the selector, that went straight through, no problem. Through our little adjuster, hell of a lot of cable here. There we go, and I'm just going to slot that onto here loosely for now, just hold that whilst I thread it through the rest. Now hopefully this should go through easily. We might have a bit of problem at the other end. Sliding down through nicely at the minute. That's it. I just had to quickly take, just quickly show you. Just had to quickly take this out from here, but it's come through now. So I'll clip that back in again and down. And I think I'm going to pull that out all the way through and have a mess about at the handlebar end before we start connecting it up at the derailleur. Okay, so that's gear selector slid down. Let's get the handlebar grip on. These are quite long, these ones, which I like for our hands. Last ones I had were a bit short. Okay, so we've got those bits back on loosely, but we're already experiencing problems. If I put the brake lever the other way around, you can see it's interfering with the gear shifter, so I can't put the gear shifter at the angle I want it at, or the brake lever at the angle I want it at. So yeah, that great plan of mine isn't going to work, so I'm going to have to swap it back round the other way, i.e. the selector this way and the brake lever up against here, and then hopefully later on we'll be able to get some shorter levers. Okay, so we're all back together here for now. I think we'll probably end up doing a bit more jiggling around, but I've still got to do the brake pipe as well. So yeah, I'm not going to get too sort of final and too into this yet. And once I've ridden it, I think I'll probably have to adjust it again. Just on another note here, it's not really relevant to this bike because I've got the front throttle actually on the other side. But if you've got an e-bike conversion and you're struggling with sort of this big chunky front throttle to get it close enough to this handlebar, if you like it sort of on the motorcycle size, I've actually done another video with an upgraded front throttle which actually will fit over the window and over a Shimano gear selector. So yeah, have a look in the playlist for that. Okay, so we've finished at this end. We're about ready to go back up on the workshop rack. Bit of messing about. I had to shorten some of these outer cables a little bit to get them to sit right, but they're all right now, going backwards and forwards. They don't bind or anything. Added a little bit of bling just for good measure. So now it's time to get it back on the rack and we'll start work on the other end. So we threaded it all the way back through, managed to get it through the gear change sensor. Noticing I'm not quite happy with this last bit of cable here. It's sort of going to be a bit tight when I jam it into there, so I think we're going to take this away and put a longer piece of cable in. Okay, and that seems to be the modifications completed. The gears are selecting smoothly. You know, it's a bit of a job for them to get it up onto the top, you know, the largest cog there, but I suspect that's always going to be the case, and with it being an e-bike, I'm rarely going to use it anyway, so I'm not too concerned, but it is running smoothly throughout the range. There's a few things I've got going to be a lot of tweaking and, you know, and readjusting up here and there. I'm not very happy. You're probably not going to pick it up on this camera here, but there's sort of 1/2 mil clearance there on the top cover of the bearings here, and on here it's touching. So I'm going to sort of put the weight on the bike, loosen all this off again and retighten it until I'm happy with that, because that clearance isn't right there at all. Who knows? So yeah, a lot of fiddling around just to tweak it up and make it a bit better. But that's the general gist of it. That's all of it done. We're waiting for parts now. The inner tubes to come. The parts of the pipe should come today. This has got to be lengthened. I'm not happy at all with this. Look how tight that is. You know, not happy at all with that. I want that to sort of come up to here and sort of curl in. You know, so that should come today, and that's going to be new to me, because although I've done a hell of a lot of brake work, whether it be on, you know, large agricultural machinery or motorcycles or cars, whatever, I've never actually done any brake work on these, and of course this hasn't got a reservoir at the top, so, you know, it's something I'm not used to, so that's all going to be new to me as well. But hey, you know, not a bad thing if you're 56 and you're still learning things. Anyway, I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to end that video there. I'm going to thank you for watching. Please hit that like and subscribe button, and I'll see you next time.